Come sing with me this song. It pays to be aware of all the dangers out there. Based on the different vaccines needed by your little fences. Put this rabies to an end. You and I, together we can make a difference. You and I, together we can make this world a better place. For you and me, for everybody, we can make it happen. When it's you and me, together we can.
Hey guys, and welcome to the first episode of RACE, or Rabies Awareness Campaign for Education. Together, we can. Here we will talk about everything you need to know about rabies. Do you have a dog? Or have you wanted to pet someone's dog before? What's the first thing you will say? Would it be along the lines of, "Nangangagat ba yan?" Dogs are very cute animals, so cute that we even dress them up and treat them as babies. But why are some people so afraid of them, even though they have been part of our everyday lives, especially concerning their bites? Today, we will learn what rabies is, the history of rabies, the signs and symptoms of rabies infection in both human and animal, and the current situation of rabies in the Philippines and in the world. And by the end of this episode, you should be able to define rabies, know their causes, give at least 2 signs and symptoms from both human and animals, and remember at least 1 ordinance or law concerning rabies. I know it may sound many, but don't worry. I will guide you along the way. My name is Denise, and this is Dindin, and we are your hosts for this episode. Shall we get started? Dogs are the most common pets around the world. One factor can be because they are considered as man's best friend. In our country, dogs are even treated as part of the family. However, we should be mindful and careful when handling our pet dogs. This is because research found out that infected dogs are responsible for most of the rabies cases among humans. According to World Health Organization, rabies is a zoonotic disease caused by a virus. This simply means that the disease can be transmitted from animals to humans. Meanwhile, Global Alliance for Rabies Control added that rabies virus attacks the central nervous system, causing severely distressing neurological symptoms before causing the victim to die. The virus responsible for the disease is Lyssavirus genus within the family Rhabdoviridae, and it is known to attack the central nervous system, which can cause death to us humans. And lastly, Center for Disease Control and Prevention refers rabies to a deadly virus spread to people from the saliva of infected animals. Rabies is known to target mammals like dogs, cats, and monkeys. According to history, rabies came from the Latin word ravere, which is associated to words madness, rage, and fury. This term was first used to describe the disease caused by the virus in the 1590s. Many researchers argued that rabies is one of the oldest diseases known to mankind. several researchers have proven that the disease has been existing in the world for quite a long time now. Let me tell you about some of these. The earliest story on rabies dates back in 2300 BC. Imagine how old that is. It's exactly 4,666 years ago. But some claim that the first written record about rabies was found in the Codex of Eshnuna, published around 1930 BC. The code forced the owners of a rabid dog to pay heavy fine when the person bitten by their dog dies. Other artifacts proving the long roots of rabies includes the paper written by Aristotle in 300 BC. And it was only during the 16th century when Girolamo Fracastoro discovered rabies as a fatal and an incurable disease affecting humans and animals. Since its discovery, rabies remains one of the neglected and underreported diseases in the world. Countries reported to have the highest record cases of rabies are mostly in Asia and Africa. Until a very significant event happened in 1885, which made a mark in the history of rabies. Can you guess it? It was when a French chemist and biologist, Louis Pasteur, accidentally made a vaccine for rabies. According to stories, on the day of July 6, 1885, a group of people rushed to Pasteur's laboratory in France and asked him to treat a young bite victim. The victim was Joseph Meester, a 9-year-old young boy bitten by a rabid dog 14 times. Not yet sure if his creative vaccine for animals will work on humans too, Pasteur was convinced by Joseph's mother to try it to her son. Fortunately, this delicate trial turned out well and was able to save Joseph's life. Since then, this discovery of Pasteur has not only saved lives, but also paved the way for other immunization researches. With this, people can now prevent human deaths due to rabies. Isn't it fun learning history, guys? Knowing that an incurable disease like rabies has been plaguing the world for a very, very long time. Scary, isn't it? But I wonder, how is that even possible? It's normal for humans to get diseases from other humans, right? But how can a dog transmit rabies to us? Maybe this next part of our lesson will come handy in figuring it out. Welcome back, guys! Earlier, you learned about the concepts about rabies. For this part, I'll bring more information about how rabies is being transmitted to anyone, including you. Well, this part is just easy to remember, since I'll only summarize the discussion into 3 causes. For number 1, as what we mostly know, rabies is transmitted through the bite of an infected animal. You might be wondering if which animals I am talking about. Can you guess which animals belong to the list? The top 1 answer is unfortunately the animals you usually have as pets at home, like your cuddly and fluffy cats and dogs. For your information, according to the World Health Organization, dogs are actually accountable to almost 96% of the rabies cases in Southeast Asia alone, which includes our country, the Philippines. Another group of animals who can carry the virus is the group of wild animals including bats and monkeys. So when you see these animals next time, be sure to be careful not to get bitten by them. For number 2, rabies can also be transmitted through the lick of an infected animal on your open wounds or mucous membranes. Mucous membranes include sensitive parts such as your eyes, nose, and mouth. For number 3, you can get infected by the rabies virus through rare cases which involves human-to-human transmission. But first things first, it's not like the zombie infection that you see in movies. This transmission, as stated by the World Health Organization, happened when the organs from an infected person were donated to a normal person. Some of the reported cases included donations of infected cornea, kidney, and liver. But take note, none of these were ever documented in the Philippines. So I hope you learned a lot from this chapter on the causes and modes of transmission of rabies. Just remember that it's as easy as counting 1 to 3. 1,
through bites, 2 through licks, and 3 through transplants. Now, you're set to move on to the next lesson. Good luck!
Oh hey! So, did you find the information handy? I hope you did, because here is a food for thought for you. Given how the rabies is transmitted and how long it has been a problem, do you think it is possible to achieve a rabies-free world? Speaking of rabies-free, how can we tell that your bantay and wuning are safe from rabies? Would you know right away? Would the effects immediately surface? Would it be better to stay away from them forever? Fear not, friends. You can still cuddle and sleep with your lovely pets. Just make sure that wuning and bantay are not showing these following signs and symptoms. There are different signs and symptoms of rabies when it comes to animals. In this case, dogs. These signs and symptoms can vary in different dogs. Some may undergo one sign, others may not. There are dogs that may be very active and furious. Dogs like these may bark aggressively, suddenly bite, or snap into any form of stimulus. Some dogs become the opposite of furious. A usual friendly and excited dog may turn unexpectedly quiet, have a sudden loss in appetite, and hide into dark places. Dogs with rabies may also show unusual changes in behavior. Some dogs may be seen chewing on its bitten part, eating uncommon things, and choking. And staggering when walking. Other symptoms of rabies include forming foam in its mouth. This is because dogs' throat and jaw muscles are already paralyzed. Usually, after 14 days, dogs with rabies will undergo coma. That leads to eventual death. That's too sad. Anyway, those are the signs and symptoms that we see when a dog or any other animal is infected with rabies. Look out for these signs. Now that you have learned what are the signs and symptoms of rabies infection in animals, it is now the time to know about the symptoms that we can see on the person bitten by a rabid animal. Here are some signs and symptoms of rabies infection in humans.
On the average, it takes 1 to 3 months before rabies develops its symptoms. The bitten human often suffers from fever, headache, and unexplainable discomfort in the body. The rabies patient also experiences a tingling, pricking, and burning sensation on the area of skin with a bite wound. Now, these are only the initial symptoms that could manifest on the rabies victim. The infection may develop into 2 forms: the furious and the paralytic rabies. Take a look at this. This is called the furious form of rabies. 80% of people infected with rabies go through this behavior change, and most of the time, this is how people imagine rabies patients. You have probably heard that rabies patients become afraid of water. Is that true? Yes, it is. A human infected with rabies becomes hydrophobic. When the infection progresses, even a mere sight of water can trigger spasms in the neck and throat of the patient. The patient may also suffer from depression, show extreme anger and irritability. Lastly, death occurs by cardiorespiratory arrest. These manifestations are the common perceptions of people about rabies patients. But did you know that 20% of rabies patients may not show these symptoms? Instead, they manifest signs of the paralytic type of rabies. In the paralytic type, the muscles of the infected human become numb, starting from the area where he or she is bitten. It then spreads through the whole body until it develops into a comatose, which later on will lead to death. This case is often misdiagnosed, which adds to underreporting of rabies cases. Remember, rabies can't be treated anymore once the symptoms become apparent. You now have an idea on what could happen to a person infected with rabies. Let's exercise our brains, shall we? There are different types of signs and symptoms in both human and animal infection of rabies. But can you find similarities in some of their symptoms? Time's up! Here are the answers for our question.
Oh, you're back. I was just thinking, was learning all of this worth it? Whoa. Before you close the video, hear me out, okay? You found out the definition of rabies and its history, and also its signs and symptoms. But is it really a threat? Tell me honestly, do you know someone who died from rabies infection? Have you seen a dog or a cat infected by it? Or are we really just making a big deal out of this, just like an upcoming zombie apocalypse? How about we check it out? Let's go around the world and see how really a threat rabies is.
Hi there! Now let us move on and discuss some hard data about cases of rabies around the world and in the Philippines. Don't worry, you don't need to memorize this. These are just to give you a picture of how big of a problem rabies is in the world. According to the World Health Organization, around 59,000 people die yearly due to rabies infection. In fact, one person dies every 10 minutes due to rabies. Pretty scary, right? Well, this is not a hopeless case at all. In fact, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, there are numerous countries that have been declared as rabies-free. Some of these are Hong Kong, Japan, Singapore, Greece, Netherlands, New Zealand, and United Kingdom. Now let us go to the cases of rabies infection in the Philippines. Did you know that the Philippines was reported to be one of the top 10 countries with numerous incidents of rabies infection? In fact, around 200 to 250 Filipinos die from rabies infection every year. In 2015 alone, the Department of Health reported 220 deaths due to rabies. On the other hand, WHO stated that incidents of animal bites almost doubled up from around 260,000 to 500,000 in just a span of 4 years. However, you must not hastily attribute this to the assumption that rabies is becoming more prevalent in our country. Instead, we can say that these rising numbers can be because people are becoming more aware of the fatality of rabies, and they now know where to go in order to be treated. Now let us learn about the important policies in the Philippines that help us combat rabies. Are you ready? First, we have the Republic Act 9482. This is also known as the Anti-Rabies Act of 2007. This act aims to control and eliminate the spread of human and animal rabies. It includes the responsibilities of pet owners in handling their pets accordingly. That is, ensuring that the dog is vaccinated when they are 3 months and continuing regular vaccination every year after that. Proper grooming also counts. The Act also covers the responsibilities of government agencies in providing accessible facilities, equipment, and education for the people. Aside from this, we also have the Executive Order number 84, also known as declaring March as the Rabies Awareness Month. It also includes an order conducting massive information drives on schools and other institutions about rabies during the month of March. See how pressing the issue of rabies is? Now let us learn about some policies about rabies in the provincial, city, and municipal levels. In Los Baños, Laguna, they have Ordinance 2005-458. It penalizes owners of stray animals through imposing confinement or custodial fees for the animals. Aside from that, there is also City Ordinance number 544 in Bacolod City. It is an ordinance that establishes dog owners' responsibilities, such as requiring fences or cages for their pets. This is to ensure that harm or injury caused by rabies and other factors will be prevented. Lastly, Dasmariñas City passed Ordinance number 01-S-2014, which seeks to provide control and elimination of rabies in Dasmariñas City. Now that you have learned about these, I hope that you could also identify the policies, ordinances present in your own cities or municipalities. You have to remember that these ordinances are important because they help protect the citizens, including you, against the infection of rabies.
Looks like our time is up. You have already reached the goal for today's episode. Thank you for watching, and I hope you're looking forward for the next installment of this series. I am Denise, and this is Dindin. We hope you guys have learned a lot about rabies. Bye-bye!
Dogs and cats, they are a little friends. But do you know what to do when they come near to you? Do you know what to do when they bite you? Dogs and cats and other animals may carry rabies all around. But do you know where to go? Do you know who to call? Come sing with me this song. It pays to be aware of all the dangers out there, based on the different vaccines needed by your little fences. Put this rabies to an end. You and I, together we can make a difference. You and I, together we can make this world a better place. For you and me, for everybody, we can make it happen. When you and me together we can.